Bob, we understand you like cats. Is that true?
Yeah, I love cats.
And what is that cat's name? Scratchy?
That's my cat, Shirley.
Surely you jest. Anyhow, there's been a controversy about whether or not you're a scholar.
Yes, it's a controversy that I initiated due to your blog, in which you described me as an independent scholar, saying that I had said I was. And you caught me by surprise, so I didn't object at the time, but afterwards I got quite annoyed. So what do you have to say for yourself?
Well, as you know, one second while I go to the lanai. Oh, you took it away. Well, as you know, you have hanging up in your office a name tag that says, "Hey, I'm Bob Grumman, independent scholar here at the American Literature Association." So I got that piece of information merely from reading your walls. I took it as a self-descriptor, not as something I was attaching to you.
Well, actually it says poet/independent scholar. And I needed a name tag at that affair, and the only descriptions I could use were poet or independent scholar or affiliated scholar, or the name of a college I might be representing.
Right.
And I don't represent any college.
Anyone or anything. Okay.
Except myself.
Except yourself. So if you're not an independent scholar, what are you?
That's an interesting question. I've been thinking about it, and I decided that I'm to put it humbly, I'm a truth seeker.
A truth seeker?
As opposed to a data seeker.
Okay.
Well, the point is that while I do respect scholars and admire the best of them, I tend to think that scholars mostly do research, which is a valid thing to do, but I'm more of a person that tries to get by with as little data as possible, so I do very little research.
So this gets back to the thing you said once to somebody. You said, "I don't do research," so that's what it is, because research is about collecting data and facts, and you're trying to get to something deeper?
Well,
more universal?
More general. And I figure you're automatically going to collect facts just by living. And I do a little. I go to a little research. I go to libraries at times, and I read books at times.
You have a lot of books here, Bob, and
some of them I've actually read.
Some of them you've actually read. That's good. But I've been to the homes of a few visual poets in my life, and you run into a lot of the same books, and you have a lot of them here. But you tend to have a bigger collection of books that do not appear to have a connection to visual poetry. Looking around the room, I see a section on drama, primarily American. I see a collection of science fiction paperbacks, not that they're unknown of in other visual poets' places. I see books on language and a lot of books on science. So, what holds these books together besides your interest in them?
Well, it's hard to say. I have a lot. You didn't mention that right over there. There's that's my main collection of what I call solid textual poetry. Poetry that's solely textual, and mostly very standard poets are represented there, like Milton and Whitman and Keats and Shelley, and I've always been very interested in the traditional canon in poetry, English and American. Drama, I started, I was originally going to be a playwright, and I've written 10 plays or so, full-length plays, all comedies. I tried blank verse in a few of them. But anyway, I was hoping to actually make money from them, and that career didn't go anywhere. Or hasn't gone anywhere yet.
That's right, there's still time. As long as that ticker's still ticking.
Right. As for the science, well, it might connect. I have a lot of psychology books. I have to admit that most of the science books I have not read. I buy a lot of science books hoping to figure out physics, which I still don't understand. The string theory and all that kind of thing is incoherent to me. But anyway, I keep trying. I read a chapter or two and then give up on a lot of them. Of course, there is the connection, the mathematical connection. I do have quite a few books on mathematics that I sometimes use as parts of my mathematical poems, and more than that, I hope to be inspired by them to create new kinds of mathematical poems. And I haven't for quite a while. I'm pretty hung up on these long division poems now. But I keep hoping that I'll see some other way to go using the math books. And I did take quite a few math courses in college, and but the problem there is that I've forgotten so much of it that it hasn't been of too much help. So I often buy a introductory calculus book or something like that to try to get me back to retrieve the knowledge that I once had. And again, I don't have time to follow it. Oh, which reminds me of another similar thing that I did. I had 2 years of Latin in school, and I recently bought a book that was Teach Yourself Latin. Yes. And I was hoping that it would be a lot easier than it is, but it dumps all the conjugations and all that kind of thing on you after about 2 lessons. I was hoping for a book that just gave the words and let you play around with the words and forget about grammar until I was felt at home with it. But it's a lot of memorization, and I just I couldn't keep going. So that was another of my attempts to better myself. It didn't work out.
So you have a lot of interests. That's what we find out. But you have some that are stronger than others. What are your main interests as a truth seeker?
Well, I've written a lot about my psychology, which is molecular psychology, and it's basically it started out as an attempt to make a model of the mind as a remembering device. I was interested in the memory, but it quickly expanded because memory is the basis of everything we do psychologically, as far as I'm concerned. And so it eventually covered just about everything. So I have theories on just about every facet of the human psychology. Some of them more sensible than others. But it connects to poetry again because I do get into aesthetics and poetics and try to explain how poetry is appreciated, and it gets into such things as imagery lighting up the mind, and well, it's I can't really discuss it without sounding pretty dumb. It's fairly complicated. Ask a question quick.
Well, I got a question. The question is, you are interested in visual poetry, in what we might call textual, regular, or solitextual poetry. Question is, who are those major poets that you focus on for your aesthetics and your discussion of your aesthetics, or for whatever reason? I can pick out one easily, which is Cummings.
Yes.
But who else would you add to that list?
Well, Keats might have been the very first poet that I really admired as a poet. Shakespeare, but I admired him as a dramatist before really liking him as a poet, and I think he's a little overrated as a poet, unless you consider his drama poetry, which it is, but I categorize it more as drama. Keats, not only for his poetry, but his thoughts on poetry. He was, I felt, one of the forerunners of art for art's sake, which is something I believe in. And then Oscar Wilde I got interested in as a playwright and comic playwright, along with Shaw. But Oscar Wilde was another arts for art's sake, and those two have, or Keats and Wilde, I'm sure, influenced my thinking on aesthetics. As for visual poetry, Cummings was the one that alerted me to the possibilities of visual poetry. But I've come to think of him more as an infraverbal poet. That is, someone who works on the interior of words, works with letters and punctuation, more or less grammatically, and not so much visually, although I like his visual poetry also. But, so he was a big forerunner. And then after him came the standard, the anthologies that everybody in visual poetry just about mentions, the Mary Ellen Stolt and the Emmett Williams anthologies. And there's one other one that
Wildman?
Right, Wildman, that I think is, I've decided had more of an influence on me than the other two. Because it had light in it, I think. Aaron Soroyan's poem, which was very influential.
Could you spell that poem for the listeners out there?
I think it's something like Lighghgt.
I'd give that a $700 award if I could.
Right. No comment on that. But I've decided it's more of an infraverbal poem than a visual poem. In fact, it's just barely a visual poem. But it's also a haiku.
Interesting. Interesting.
Or a kind of, no, I take that back, because I've recently decided to call poems that are very much like haiku, but that the traditionalists don't consider haiku, lyric-ku. And which I think most of the innovative poets involved in the field are doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron Soroyan's would be a lyric-ku. It has a lot of haiku elements, and it's a very compact poem, etc., etc.
Definitely compact. So the last question I have for you has to do with your projects. You have lots of projects going on all the time. But what are your main projects right now?
Well, I'm trying to finish one on Shakespeare, which somehow I never mentioned, although people claim that I'm obsessed with it. I'm trying to definitively refute the people who believe that someone other than Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare's works. Not only that, I'm trying to prove through the use of my psychology that the people who don't believe that Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare are crazy.
It all connects.
So I've written the book and actually self-published it, and it's over here.
Oh, that's right. And you got to get lower. Yeah, okay. And what's it called?
It's called Shakespeare and the Rigidniks. Rigidniks are people who are too rigid to be able to believe, in my opinion, in the creative process, and in the more or less accidental acquirement of the knowledge one needs to become a great playwright. They believe that a playwright of Shakespeare's stature had to have been well educated and brought up in the best possible home. I'll be accused of being a snob for saying that, but I do feel that many anti-Stratfordians, as they're called, are snobs, but more intellectual snobs than social snobs, although there's a bit of that also. Anyway, my original purpose in doing this book was to not only to take care of the Shakespeare authorship problem, but to introduce my psychology. And unfortunately, the part of this book which is about my psychology, I discovered is incoherent. So
came to us as a surprise to all of us, I'm sure.
Well, I feel that I concentrated so much on the refutation of anti-Stratfordianism that I forgot about the theory part. And also I was trying to do too much with I was trying to introduce the whole psychology at once in 2 or 3 chapters, and it didn't work. But I've rewritten it and simplified it, so there'll be a second printing soon, I hope. That's one of the main projects I want to take care of. One that I just started is a book I'm tentatively calling Haiku Boom.
Great title.
Yeah, right. I'm sure. I figured you'd like it. Well, it gets into my idea of what haiku is, and then it gives up on trying to convince other people that the things I consider haiku are haiku. So it brings in this lyric coup that I mentioned previously. And I'm doing that entry by entry at my blog. I've done 25 straight blog entries on haiku. And I'm hoping that the blog gives me the discipline to continue and finish that project. And I have an ongoing or a project I should have completed 5 years ago. It's the second volume of Writing to Be Seen, an anthology of visual poetry. And I have all the material here. Craig Hill is my co-editor. He did his part and got it all to me, but I just haven't gotten around to making a print-ready final copy of it, and for various reasons, but the main one is that I've been really lazy, and I'm hoping again that this summer I'll take care of that.
Well, just a little follow-up question. We know that there are lots of works by individual visual poets in each of these anthologies, so you have a lot of pages of their work. So whose work can we expect to see in this upcoming volume when it comes out?
Okay, we devote 20 pages to each, 20 pages of poems to each of the people in it. There are about 12 of them. This time, John M. Bennett, myself, and Craig, and John Vieira, Mikal and Liz was. I can't remember right offhand, but we feel that we've gotten, well, we're about 20. We need one more volume, which would include your work, and Nico Vasilakis' work. And we've missed a whole bunch of people, but we think that with the third volume, if we ever get to it, we'd give a good cross-section of where visual poetry was in 1995 or so, or maybe 2000. Mm-hmm. There's a lot been done since then that I'm not in touch with, really. And I hope eventually we or someone will do a similar volume on Canadian visual poetry. We've focused on American only this time for space reasons, really. And so anyway, that's an important thing that I really hope to get done.
Well, Bob, for everyone back at DBQP, I thank you again for your time. I think now we should head out to the car and drive you to a bike shop.